Well, obviously, it was a great win for us on the road at Texas A&M against a very good team, and in viewing the game, some of the obvious things of the execution that we had on special teams was a huge factor in the game in terms of, the return game, kickoff return, field position, punt returns. Jalen Waddle obviously, did a great job in that regard. Henry Ruggs did a great job on kickoff return, but the teams themselves, I think, did a really, really good job in the game. Uh, Obvious areas that we need to improve on is, punting and changing field position in that regard. I think offensively we probably ran the ball most effectively. We were pretty good on third down. We had good pass protection for the most part. Um, and, there's some things that we need to clean up. We had a couple, maybe mis-executions in the passing game that has been uncharacteristic for us, so far this year, and far too many penalties in the game, some of which negated, some explosive plays that, we really need to get cleaned up. Defensively, I think the players played hard in the game and certainly adjusted well after, a tough opening drive in terms of how we sort of bounced back in the game and kept competing in the game. But we still are making too many mental errors, and we got to get everybody playing together on the same page so that we can get the kind of execution we need to be a little bit more consistent, in that regard. I think you all got the players of the game, and obviously this game to me is Tennessee is always a game that's a big rivalry game. It means a lot to a lot of people in Alabama. Certainly means a lot to us. It means a lot to me. Jeremy has done a really, really good job there. His team, to me, is emerging. They lost 2 games that they very easily could have won, but they're playing with great discipline, toughness. The players are really playing hard. They're executing well in terms of what they did and probably played, their best game this last week against Mississippi State. So, I think all you have to do is look at the, South Carolina, Georgia game and sort of figure out that anybody, if you don't play well every week, if you play poorly and the other team plays well against you, and you turn over and make mistakes, anybody can beat anybody. So it's going to be important for us to improve and play well in this game and be ready to play. These guys have good players. They've been able to run the ball effectively on offense. Both quarterbacks have been effective for them. They got a couple good running backs. They've got a couple good receivers. Offensive line plays with a lot of toughness. Their defense plays hard and plays with a lot of toughness, and they've been very, very productive on special teams. So we have many, many challenges. I don't really have any injuries, to report, but the fact that Smitty got kicked out of the last game for retaliation is something that really can't be tolerated, and I think is a lesson that all players need to learn from in terms of can't make emotional decisions on the field, can't do what you feel like doing. You have to have enough discipline to walk away, even if you're provoked into something that you don't like. So he will be disciplined in the next game, and that's our decision to do what we need to do to help him make better choices and decisions in the future. Smitty's a great guy. He's one of the best guys, hardest workers, does everything right, but it doesn't make any difference. When you make emotional decisions, you don't have a brain, you make bad decisions, sometimes they lead to consequences.
What have you seen from Christian Barmore that led to his increased role on Saturday?
Well, he's a good pass rusher. He gives us something inside that I think is very helpful in pass rush, and it's a role that we've been trying to sort of groom him for. And the more knowledge and experience that he gets, and he did a good job in the game. So we'll try to continue to use some of that inside pass rush that he gives us to help us in the future.
Just at the midway point of the season, how would you assess your defense and the way it's played so far?
Well, I don't think we've played as well as we'd like to play, giving up more points and more yards than we typically do. But we've got young players playing, and we have to help them develop to play with more consistency. And we haven't always had all the players on the field that I think we need to give us enough guys that can make plays out there. It was probably better in the last game with, Terrell and Anthony both on the field at the same time. That's something that we haven't had much of this season. And we just got to continue to focus on what we need to do to improve.
Defense had 10 pass breakups in the last game. Was the secondary more aggressive, or what causes 10 pass breakups in a game?
Well, they passed the ball quite a bit, which start with that. I think that we didn't play different coverages. I can't answer that. I mean, there's no reason for it. I guess the guys did what they were supposed to do, so they were there to cover the guy so they could break the ball up. There were some other opportunities that we had to break up passes that we didn't. And those things we need to improve on. There were some mental errors made in the secondary that could have led to plays that we need to clean up. So kind of focused on what we need to do to improve. And these teams that throw the ball a lot, we actually played the run better in this game on the running plays. But as we do stats, when the quarterback scrambles for 100 yards in a game or whatever, and it shows up on the rushing stats, to us, that's a pass. So we put it in the passing stats, all right, because it's a pass play. When they ran the ball, we were a little better, but we didn't do a good enough job of containing a very athletic quarterback on a consistent basis.
Coach, I have two questions, although I may just have one. You had discipline situations in the first game of the year. Obviously, will DeVonta's be similar type discipline to what those were?
What were they?
Najee and Brian misplaying.
No, that was internal in terms of what they did. I think this is a little more significant than that, and I think this warrants half when you do something like this, which I think the conference office would agree with. So. And hopefully, our players can learn from this.
And then on the offensive line, I noticed Landon on the Players of the Week, and that seemed to be a really productive configuration for you up front on Saturday. And how is he growing into that center position?
Well, he did a nice job in the game. He'd played it before. He's practiced it a lot before. Deontay is obviously, to me, a very powerful guy playing guard, which is what you want inside with the players that you have. So, the combination of those guys worked out very well in this game. Hopefully Chris will be able to do some things this week, and we'll have some kind of decision to make toward the end of the week as to how we, go forward at that position.
Nick, given your insight, what's the most important thing about rivalry games, and what have they done to grow college football?
Well, I think rivalry games, are interesting to the fans. There's a lot of fans that have a lot of passion about their school, and when you play in rivalry games, I think that passion actually heightens. I think you hope the passion certainly does that with the players who are participating, and hopefully it'll be the case with our team and our players, realizing the significance of this game and how important it is to so many of us internally and externally. And I think it creates a lot of interest. And I know this has always been a big game for Alabama folks, and certainly a big game for us.
Did you, as a follow-up, did you have a favorite college football rivalry game growing up?
Well, when I grew up, there wasn't 26 games a week on TV. There was one game on TV. And, I had to go turn the antenna for my dad so he could watch the game, because we only got 3 channels. So you had to get it on the right channel, and the antenna had to be pointed in the right direction. So, there's a lot of great rivalry games. I remember watching Alabama and Auburn. When I was a kid, Ohio State and Michigan, Nebraska and Oklahoma used to have some big rivalry games. Southern Cal, UCLA. I mean, I could go on and on and on of, some of the historic rivalry games that you were just hopeful when I was growing up that you would have a chance to see them and they would be on TV. So I can't say that I had a favorite. I grew up in West Virginia, so back in those days, the Pitt-West Virginia game was a big game. So, I guess as a kid, because I was in West Virginia and that was the one that affected me the most, that was probably what I would say, only because of the exposure that I had to it.
Coach, this is the 10-year anniversary of the 2009 game with Tennessee and the kick. Just want to get your thoughts on that game and what your emotions were before Cody's block and then after Cody's block.
Well, obviously that play was really significant, in terms of that team and what that team was able to accomplish and what that team was able to do. My thoughts before we blocked the kick is we didn't play particularly well in the game. My thoughts afterwards was it was a great play by a lot of players. Great effort on his part. I'm not sure Julio or somebody else would have blocked the kick if he didn't block it. And it was a great win for us. But sometimes in rivalry games, you have those kind of tough tests, and you got to be ready for it, and you got to compete for 60 minutes in the game. And we were very fortunate that day to, be able to come out on top.
I noticed early in the last game, Mark Hale got some snaps, I think at both Mike and Will. What was the thought process there?
Well, Mark Hale's been injured, and he was actually competing, and we were going to try to create a role for him, and he pulled his hamstring and missed a couple weeks. So it was really to try to give him an opportunity, as well as maybe take some burden off the other guys in terms of what's on their plate. So if he continues to do well, it would be helpful to our team that we have more guys on defense that can play winning football. And he's certainly a guy that has the capability to do that.
We've seen Byron Young get into the games earlier. What do you like about his game and what does he offer on the defensive line? Byron Young.
Well, he's been playing all year long. So, we have two freshmen, he and Justin, that have played a lot of right end, and they've actually played more since LeBron Ray got injured at that position. And both guys are developing and emerging. I think confidence is really important, that those guys can continue to develop that in terms of better understanding of what to do so they can play fast and respond and react and not think about what they got to do. And we think those guys have a bright future.
Were you ever in a noontime basketball league with Jeremy Pruitt?
Noontime basketball with Jeremy Pruitt.
He never played much. So I can't really comment. I know he's a great competitor and did an outstanding job for us here, and one of the best coaches that we've ever had on our staff in terms of, knowledge, experience, work ethic, players responding in a positive way to him, good teacher on the field, and that's certainly reflected in the way their team is playing.